Throughout history, the world has witnessed the rise of numerous dictators who wielded absolute power with ruthless efficiency, leaving behind a trail of destruction, suffering, and death. 1. Adolf Hitler. Born in Austria in 1889, Hitler rose to power in Germany in the 1930s, espousing a virulent form of nationalism and anti-Semitism. He orchestrated the Holocaust, the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews and millions of others deemed undesirable. Hitler's aggressive expansionism plunged the world into World War II, resulting in the deaths of over 60 million people. His regime's atrocities continue to haunt humanity as a stark reminder of the horrors of unchecked tyranny. Hitler's twisted ideology, outlined in his autobiographical manifesto, Mein Kampf, laid the groundwork for his genocidal policies and militaristic ambitions. His rise to power was facilitated by economic instability, political polarization, and the failure of the Weimar Republic to address Germany's grievances following World War I. 2. Joseph Stalin. After Lenin's death in 1924, Stalin emerged as the undisputed leader of the Soviet Union. He ruthlessly consolidated power through purges, show trials, and mass executions, eliminating perceived threats within the Communist Party and society at large. Stalin's policies, including forced collectivization and industrialization, led to widespread famine and the deaths of millions. His reign of terror left an indelible mark on Soviet society, fostering a climate of fear and suspicion. Stalin's cult of personality, propagated through propaganda and censorship, portrayed him as a benevolent father figure while concealing the brutality of his regime. The Great Purge of the 1930s targeted not only political opponents but also artists, intellectuals, and ethnic minorities, decimating the ranks of the Soviet elite and instilling pervasive paranoia. Make sure to subscribe for more interesting content. 3. Mao Zedong. Mao's rise to power began with the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949. His radical policies, such as the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, resulted in catastrophic economic mismanagement and social upheaval. Tens of millions perished from starvation, persecution, and violence during Mao's reign. Despite his role in modernizing China, Mao's legacy is tainted by the immense human suffering caused by his authoritarian rule. Mao's cult of personality, embodied in his Little Red Book and ubiquitous propaganda posters, enshrined him as the supreme leader of the Chinese Communist Party. The Great Leap Forward, an ambitious campaign to rapidly industrialize China's agrarian economy, led to the largest famine in human history, claiming an estimated 30 to 45 million lives. 4. Pol Pot. As the leader of the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, Pol Pot sought to create an agrarian utopia through radical communist reforms. His regime's ruthless policies, including forced labor, mass executions, and the abolition of religion and education, resulted in the deaths of nearly a quarter of Cambodia's population. The horrors of the killing fields, where countless innocent lives were brutally extinguished, remain a chilling reminder of Pol Pot's brutality and disregard for human life. Pol Pot's radical ideology, influenced by Maoism and anti-colonialism, aimed to purify Cambodian society by eradicating perceived enemies of the revolution. The Khmer Rouge's reign of terror targeted not only intellectuals, professionals, and ethnic minorities, but also former allies deemed disloyal to the regime. 5. Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein's reign of terror in Iraq was characterized by brutality, repression, and aggression. He ruthlessly suppressed dissent through torture, executions, and the use of chemical weapons against his own people. Saddam's invasion of Kuwait in 1990 precipitated the Gulf War, leading to devastating consequences for Iraq and its people. His regime's legacy of violence and instability continues to reverberate in the region to this day. Saddam's Ba'athist regime, founded on Arab nationalism and secularism, maintained power through a pervasive security apparatus and cult of personality. The Iran-Iraq War, initiated by Saddam's territorial ambitions and fears of Islamic revolution, claimed over 1 million lives and left both countries economically devastated. 6. Kim Jong Il. Kim Jong Il succeeded his father, Kim Il-sung, as the leader of North Korea in 1994, perpetuating a totalitarian regime characterized by oppression, propaganda, and nuclear brinkmanship. He presided over a cult of personality that portrayed him as a deity-like figure while subjecting his people to extreme poverty, famine, and human rights abuses. Kim's pursuit of nuclear weapons further isolated North Korea from the international community, exacerbating tensions on the Korean peninsula. Kim Jong-il's regime maintained power through a combination of totalitarian control, propaganda, and a pervasive cult of personality. The arduous march, a famine in the 1990s, exacerbated by economic mismanagement and natural disasters, claimed hundreds of thousands of North Korean lives. 7. Idi Amin. Idi Amin's brutal regime in Uganda was marked by violence, corruption, and ethnic persecution. He seized power in a military coup in 1971, establishing a dictatorship characterized by arbitrary arrests, torture, and mass killings. Amin's reign of terror targeted ethnic minorities, particularly the Acholi, Lango, and other groups perceived as threats to his rule. His expulsion of Asians from Uganda and erratic foreign policies further destabilized the country, plunging it into economic ruin and social chaos. Amin's reign of terror was characterized by arbitrary arrests, extrajudicial killings, and the systematic torture of political opponents. His embrace of Islamic extremism and support for Palestinian militants strained Uganda's relations with Israel and Western powers. 8. Nicolae Ceaușescu. Nicolae Ceaușescu's totalitarian regime in Romania was characterized by repression, censorship, and megalomania. He ruled with an iron fist, silencing dissent and cultivating a cult of personality around himself and his wife, Elena. Ceaușescu's draconian policies, including forced resettlement and the destruction of historic neighborhoods, alienated him from the Romanian people, leading to widespread discontent. His regime's downfall came in 1989 during the violent revolution that ultimately ended his rule and cost him and his wife their lives. Ceaușescu's regime maintained power through a combination of censorship, propaganda, and a pervasive secret police apparatus. His lavish spending on grandiose projects, such as the Palace of the Parliament, contrasted starkly with the dire living conditions of ordinary Romanians. 9. Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi's rule in Libya was marked by brutality, oppression, and support for terrorism. He seized power in a military coup in 1969, establishing a dictatorship characterized by political repression, human rights abuses, and state-sponsored terrorism. Gaddafi's pursuit of nuclear weapons and sponsorship of international terrorism earned him pariah status in the international community. His regime's downfall came during the 2011 Libyan civil war, which culminated in his capture and extrajudicial killing by rebel forces. Gaddafi's regime maintained power through a combination of repression, patronage, and manipulation of tribal rivalries. 10. Bashar al-Assad. Bashar al-Assad's authoritarian rule in Syria has been characterized by brutality, repression, and war crimes. He inherited power from his father, Hafez al-Assad, in 2000, continuing the family's dynastic dictatorship. Assad's brutal crackdown on peaceful protests during the Arab Spring in 2011 precipitated the Syrian civil war, resulting in untold human suffering and devastation. His regime's use of chemical weapons against civilians and systematic targeting of opposition strongholds have drawn widespread condemnation from the international community. Assad's regime maintained power through a combination of coercion, propaganda, and manipulation of sectarian divisions. The Syrian civil war, exacerbated by regional rivalries and foreign intervention, has claimed over 500,000 lives and displaced millions more, creating a humanitarian catastrophe of unprecedented scale. Comment below the dictators from history I missed in this video. The legacies of these dictators serve as cautionary tales, reminding us of the dangers of unchecked power and the fragility of human rights and democracy. Their reigns of terror inflicted immeasurable suffering upon millions, leaving scars that continue to shape the societies they once ruled. As we reflect on their histories, we must remain vigilant in safeguarding the principles of freedom, justice, and human dignity to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated.